What is up, you savages? This is the Protect Your Neck podcast, and I'm your host, Dan Tom. Analyst is work you can find over at MMA Junkie as well as oddscheckerus.com. But on this here program, the Protect Your Neck podcast, we break down high-level MMA. That's what we're going to do here today tonight. Whenever you're listening to this, hopefully you're forward to the fight. It is episode 300, and I'm recording it on Friday morning, Vegas time for UFC Vegas 48, UFC Fight Night 20111, UFC Fight Night, nearly impromptu minted main event, Johnny Walker versus Jamal Hill, Sean Connery's favorite. That's right. As you can see by my Beto Sean Connery posts on Twitter, that is so obscure and coded that I don't even think the few people that listen to this podcast really get, but it's okay because I'm fucking weird like that. And, despite how I go about things, I try to get to the accurate place to hopefully make us all some money. So that's what we're going to try to do here. We've had some success. It's been good. It's been good. Coming off a really good week, which we'll recap. But, again, this week, I'm feeling better than when I started about it. This last crunch time of 24 to 48 hours of ironing out the plays. After I got done with my in-depth mains on Bellator and UFC, which of course I will get to, and you can find at MMAJunkie.com. Hopefully the Bellator one should be up around when this is going up. But yeah, still playing catch up, still kind of butterfly effect backlogged. Not that you guys care to hear the excuses, but I do want to shout out to the good peeps on YouTube wondering what's the delays on the camera stuff and all that. Because aside from the few, not even the few, I think only like one recently on last week's. It was trying to troll me in the comments, but everybody else is really fucking cool, to be honest. So that's why I apologize to the, YouTube comments aren't the friendliest place, but the good thing, about not having a big following like this podcast is, I don't get too many of them, so I try to keep track and do my listeners justice, but it's been tough to get back on the messages, as you can tell. By the way, timestamps as per usual on these breakdown shows if you're new. I timestamp it in the show notes, so if you want to skip me talking / my recaps, go to the breakdown. You can do that for when the UFC breakdown starts. I'll probably even put the Bellator talk when that starts as well. And of course, at the end of pretty much all, in case I forget, breakdown shows, I will recap my picks and plays at the very end. If you're in a rush / I think it's always good to recap. But yeah, like I was saying, wasn't as excited. A little more. I think I've got a nice machine gun spray. We shall see, right, if it's nice. But answering some questions of some listeners. Shouts to Jerry Harper was just asking me some questions about bankroll and this and that. This is a great. Everyone's got their own things, and bankroll and discipline was actually probably it's one of the most important skills and one of the skills that I took the longest to come around on, and I still don't have it now, by the way. Everybody has their own things. For example, 30% of your bankroll is kind of a round number you will hear as far as risking and wagering. It's not bad. 30%, this card, I will definitely be in the 30 percentile of the bankroll, and I won't even be even betting more than I thought I was going to bet. It won't be as many bets as last week. And from what my winnings were last week, I'm betting less than what my profit margin was for last week, if that makes sense as well. We'll see how we do. I think I spread out roughly 4 units, give or take, between 2 events. So we'll get to you those plays after some recaps, some quick notes, and whatnot. But yeah, 300 episodes. I'd like to. I don't want to say that. I'd be lying if I said, "Oh, I didn't think I would make that far," because despite my low self-esteem and constant self-deprecation to a painful fault that I do here, I did expect to get this far. I expected to be better, in fact, but at a certain point, I didn't think I was going to get this far once realities of many things hit. Finances, the space, Burnout, likes, dislikes, things I still struggle with now, obviously, and I'm pretty open with you guys about that, right? So it is a bit surprising, but this is not an acceptance speech. There is no award being given, so I don't want to wax on about this, but I guess I'll just take it as an opportunity to say thank you for helping me get this long, because I probably wouldn't have got this long without you guys. I don't have co-host or regular co-host for that matter, producers, sponsors, any of that. If the only financial help I've had is for this show is from you guys, and I still have a table full of stuff that I've used from funds from your guys' kind donations. Shout out to my guy Pascal, recent supporter over there. The PayPal secure link over at mixedmartialanalyst.com that supports this here free show that's been free for half a decade, and I will continue to give to you free for as long as possible. But that being said, man, your guys' support does go a long way. Some of you, like the Tony C's of the world, or the Rob G's of the world, so on and so forth, many other of yous, have hit that a little too much, but it is there for anybody that does want to support this show. I don't ask for fees or this or that or tips or percentages of anybody's winnings. That's all you guys, man. I'm here to help. If I can be a helpful reference point, that's awesome. But you guys don't owe me anything because I don't promise you anything. I'm here hopefully as a useful reference point, and my reward for being a useful reference point ideally would be more listeners. Those listeners spreading the word, because that is just as much, if not as important, right, as any kind of financial things. But those who ask about Patreons or financial things, I do have a secure PayPal link to the right side of mixedmartialanalyst.com. Host this here show. Links in the show notes there as well. At Dan Tom MMA is where you can find me on Twitter. In my link tree, I also provide a safe, secure PayPal donation link if you want to donate to the show. And again, as I talked about camera equipment, all that stuff, it does go to there. So shout to Pascal for hitting the PayPal, and shouts to everybody for their support for getting me to 300. And their just support in tough times. With violent people like, oh, if your luck turns around, and I keep trying to. I know I'm very open and I talk about things to a fault on this show, but in my defense, I like to think I try to put things in perspective and brush things off and say, I don't got it that bad if someone says I got it bad, or I'll try to point to someone else. The other people have it worse, yada yada, that old tale. But yeah, it's been, I was going through some stuff last week with, my brother-in-law, he's long road to recovery, like a year's road to recovery, got in like this major accident, just breaking a bunch of things, shattering shoulders, ribs, sternums, all that stuff. Around Red Rocks, around the mountains outside here, and a different part of the mountains, more Mount Charleston, Cow Canyon to be specific. Last time I recorded with you guys, my kickboxing coach Tim Lane went missing, and if you could tell by the way I was talking about it, I didn't want to say anything to jinx it. Bachi, as we say in Chinese, bachi, it's like bad luck. It's like jinxing. Bachi is like the equivalent, I guess, to jinxing something. And I definitely didn't want to spread any bachi. Not that it fucking mattered, but yeah. Especially if you guys know my history, or the gym's history, I should say. The gym has already gone through this with Robert Follis, not, but 4 or 5 years ago. Different. I think Robert was Calico Basin or somewhere around those. I don't know. Doesn't fucking matter. Same theme. I want to say, forgive me for sharing, or if I'm out of school on details. It's been a while. I cared to look it up, but I believe Robert was in the car. Then Tim was, of course, at the apex of a mountain, according to my guy's IG, Eric Nixick, whom I messaged and sent out a general post just to my Extreme Couture family, because I wasn't as close to Tim as I was with Follis, and there's plenty of people at that gym that was closer to both those guys than I was. So I'm not going to try to make you know, play a violin for a pat on my back or make anything bigger than it was. But especially with Follis, and at the time, well, I know, and my own history and struggles with depression and losing people to suicide, make these things kind of brings all that back for me. So even though I don't am close, and I'm definitely not trying to make it, to be like with Tim or anything like that, it did really fuck with me. So thank you guys for the positive messages, but really I just, if you could send that love to the Extreme Couture family and everybody there, and who's been there, especially lately and through the years, whereas I haven't, not by my choice. Health, pandemic, bunch of things, newfound responsibilities, all this other stuff, life. But still, this is why it breaks my heart that I'm not there regularly, not just for my own selfish needs and health, I should say, but not that I could really make a difference in the health of others, but you never know. And, Tim, it's not hyperbole, he was one of those people in the gym that really just brighten your fucking day. Always gave that positive energy. If you've heard me talk about, if you could kick someone one place, what's the one place you want to kick someone, the most effective thing, people will say, spinning heel kick, Adam Barbosa, ball kick to the nuts, if someone's trying to be clever. And that's why spring liver kick, that setup was all taken from Tim. Counterbalancing, spins, back fists, we talk about it, maybe we talk about Johnny Walker's, I believe he does a similar variation of it when he fought Ledette, I believe. But sometimes the best way to counterbalance a spinning attack, like a spin kick, is a spinning back fist the other way. Oddly enough, it sounds chaos. You're stacking chaos on chaos, but Tim always broke it down in a way on why that's actually a safer counterbalance. A lot of things that I'll never forget and appreciate. My heart goes to his beautiful wife, who can't imagine what she's going through. His family, of course, his friends / family, Extreme Couture family. I just want to give my hearts to them and a rest in peace to Tim, and my heart. And it's so hard, and I feel so terrible. That's the reason why I tried it, because I've been having to kind of protect myself to a certain extent, and not just protect myself, it's just really just not common sense, but like by the numbers. I'm not uber popular, but fuck, man, especially like times like now, my messages are backlogged and it's hard to get to everybody. That being said, I try my best to, and I like to think that I keep my door open to those in need. And I'd like to remind you guys to not just keep your doors open, but maybe, and this goes for me, maybe we shall be a little more proactive with our relationship pursuits and making sure those relationships, friendships, and people are okay. Because I can tell you that this stuff is real. And yeah, it's not fun. So, alright, I didn't want to get too much into that, but yeah. Just to follow up from last week. Alright, let's go. UFC 1430, UFC 271. Recap. 13-1 in overall in picks, 2-0 in parlay pieces, 3-0 in straight plays, 2-0 in props, 3-1 in fight night ads. It was a really good night. Did really well. A lot of passes ended up cashing. I mean, the only thing we got wrong was the main event. And even for having an admitted contrarian pick, you could accuse me of my heart pick. I did provide analysis that I was proud of with that pick, and I would argue that the analysis still shined through, which was, of course, Israel Adesanya defeating Robert Whittaker for the second time, this time by unanimous decision. I know I had no issues with the scorecards live. I didn't go back to rewatch it, but I still don't have an issue with it. I really tried to fiddle down my filter and stuff, so I didn't see a lot of the Robert Whittaker slash scorecard slash Robert Whittaker was Rob Talk that people were talking about. But I did see a lot of discourse just in general about the scoring and this and that, and I don't know. It's not that these aren't valid talking points or things like that. I don't know. I feel like every week we're on something, and the same goes for me. I'm not throwing shade, Same can be said about me. But I didn't see an issue with this too much. I saw some conjecture about leg kick versus jab. And again, these things, like everything, it's a case-by-case scenario. Just like MMA is a case-by-case scenario, right? Styles, right? Largely, which is what I focus on. To me, aside from the verbal confirmation of Whittaker saying the leg kicks bothered him in his corner, it looked that way. And kind of as we talked about, when I broke down that Brunson Silva scorecard for my guy Tony C, is that body language is just huge. And shout out to my guy Chris Rennie, who I agreed with. He said among the conjecture, I think he's tweeted something, people weren't talking about the body language enough, and that's true. And we can debate on the success of the jabs, which something that I and others called for Whittaker. He was going to need to attach to that jab, which he didn't do enough / successfully. But it was not to use a typical term, but yeah, it was a chess match of sorts. And even though Adesanya gave some of that body language of the, it didn't bother me, and you know what that means, it bothered him. And I say that to say that, even if a judge doesn't consciously think that, subconsciously, again, he could count that against Adesanya, because however he's going about it, at the end of the day, he's acknowledging a shot, which is always bad. You should never acknowledge a shot, right? No sell, no sell, no sell. However, I don't feel like that weighed as much as to not just the kicks, but Rob's reaction to the kicks, the stance, that thing where sometimes your leg maybe is kind of light, and they do kind of debase it a bit with their leg kick, so you kind of go with the motion and do one of those kind of fancy spins like, I meant to spin, like a traditional martial arts fake spin before a kick or instead of a kick that never came kind of a deal. One of those, maybe a more other apt way to describe this, you guys know that shootbox Vanderlei Silva, one leg up, hopping in a circle kind of emotion, when someone gets a leg kick, they almost do that version of that. Sometimes, again, legitimately, maybe they catch them at the wrong time and they could care less. They're just feeling flowy. And that can still be bad because the judge can read that as being hurt. Or sometimes, which is how I read it, ooh, he felt that one. So that's why I edged it toward Adesanya. But what people have to realize who can't believe it was scored for Whittaker or this or that, and not that I want to add fuel to that fire, but to play devil's advocate, and is, and I think Zane Simon tweeted this, and I know he, many others have said this many times before as well, but it's worth repeating, which is when you have a low output round, as technical and as air quotes clear as you want to think it is, when there's ultimately not much being done, by both criteria of MMA and both by human nature, you leave the door open for the wind to blow. Which way the round's going to go, all right? You leave that door, whether you like it or not, whether you agree with it or not, them's the facts, Again, one of the checklists for controversial decisions: acknowledgments of shots, body language, right? Visible damage, which you could see some of that on Whittaker's leg, I believe, right? And another thing is, inactivity. Inactivity leaves the door open. I mean, these are these common check marks when you go through an episode like me and Scott Fontana did, where we look at controversial decisions. There are certain, whether you agree, disagree, strong, not strong, mild, the common thread through it all are a lot of those things that I mark off and name off there. So these are things you need to keep in mind. I won't say too much about Adesanya. I didn't really catch up on too many of the post-fight interviews. All I'll say is, Shouts to Trent Rhinesmith, who I believe wrote an article about this, but trickle-down theory is kind of BS / not something I'd be confident about, particularly in the MMA arena, and even as explained by Adesanya's own manager, if you don't reveal your pay, you're essentially just protecting the promotion, arguably at that point, and trickle-down theories that you claim can't work, and that was his own manager on the same program that he was on. But Adesanya, and maybe he said different things. I heard him say some positive things about Ngannou since, but I also heard him, may or may not have taken some jabs. I know Rockhold took some jabs or saying something about, stand up for your African brothers or whatever. I don't know what that was about. I don't recall at this point, but it was like months ago. But Adesanya was saying some very he's sounding like both Conor and Cormier at their company men most. And I loved Conor early on, Cage Warriors days when he was only doing interviews with MMA Junkie when most people didn't know who the fuck he was. And of course, Cormier really is a nice guy in person, regardless of the kind of company man direction he's taken in recent years. But it's definitely been tough, right? And I remember Cormier saying, saying something similar to Usman in regards to Woodley, kind of a deal, and Woodley would be Ngannou in this situation. And what Cormier said, I believe, or what Usman, if I remember this correctly, said when quoting Cormier's advice to him when becoming champion, said, "Don't do it like some guys and make statements, and make headlines or statements in public. Just smile and kind of, be the company man and do your negotiating behind the scenes." And I'm not saying there's not truth or that's not, there's no correctness and context or nuance to that. I'm not saying any of that, but I'm just saying it just smacks real familiar, and it almost felt like he was throwing shade when he was saying, he was just like, hey, I handle my business, behind the scenes. Is that when he's talking about coming into fight week, dealing with the UFC, where we just saw the UFC before Ngannou, coming in, with, contentiousness on his deal. And yeah, I mean, and I, and we saw that BS narrative. He's cocky. He's traveling the world. And it's like, none of that was true. That was all just, UFC negotiating narrative. And then, UFC, and again, I could care less about, not could care less, but I'm not going to, waste time on this Joe Rogan stuff. But, him stepping in and, it would have been legitimate. Dana would have been legitimate to actually hear, Dana's thoughts on it, especially with the news that would come later and Dana's comments that would come later to said news that counteracted his own company about Rogan sitting out. And we really missed a window into that if, Izzy didn't white knight for Dana, for Dana right there to white knight for Joe. And defend the use of the N-word and all that stuff or whatever the heck is going on. Anyways, so I know it's not popular and it's going to come off as a hater. I'm happy for Izzy that he got paid, by the way. I know it's not popular. I'm just saying, I said this about Jones. I said this about Conor before these things happen. I've pretty much, more accurate than my analysis has been some of the biggest character swings I've called for over a decade now before it happened. It's weird. It's useless. It's nothing I'm not proud of, but just for what it's worth, getting a lot of, hearing a lot of the things, Conor, Jones, Cormier, yeah, I'm hearing a lot of the things I don't like about those particular people. I feel like Izzy's inkling down that path. Hopefully he stays true to the other things that he said, because he said plenty of good things. And I like Izzy. He's a fantastic, amazing, entertaining martial artist. I know he's had some lackluster affairs, but for people to understand his style and appreciate technical stuff, it's not that bad, I guess, or whatever. So whatever. I don't know. Just yeah. Anyways, didn't play that fight. Good reason. I was going to play this fight, like I said on the podcast, in the co-main event. Tai Tuivasa defeats Derek Lewis, via KO. You know, I can't say I'm mad that I didn't play it because I was already up. So it is volatile heavyweight fights, and shoot, Derek Lewis almost had Tai Tuivasa out of there. Shout out to Two Men on Tangra Dome. Probably had the funniest recap breakdown of this fight, saying like Tai Tuivasa actually worked tried to work behind the jab, measured, worked into the clinch, elbowed, kneed, like pretty systematic and fundamental. Where Derek Lewis, like, his game plan was to wrestle, and both were successful. And the joke there is just kind of like these are kind of like meme fighters, stereotypically, so to speak. So it was fucking hilarious and awesome. This fight was just great. And again, sometimes, shout out, by the way, to I know Mike Swick, by the way, dealing with cancer. Shout out to Sean Carey, former handicapper in this space. Been on podcasts like Half the Battle, MMA Analysis, podcasts with shows that I've shouted, and people that have been on this show or I've worked with and been on their show. I don't know Sean too personally, but I retweeted his GoFundMe. Bad for cancer funds and whatnot. But I remember Sean saying something as a breakdown. Sometimes you got to be stubborn, even if you're losing money and you're wrong. If you really believe in your read, you got to stick with it. And how many times has it happened to me, and I'm sure you on the other side of this microphone, where you're like, I always bet against this guy. And then I'm like, you know what? I learned my lesson. Fine. I'm going to pick him, and I'm going to bet him. Or I'm not going to bet him, but I'm not going to bet against him for once. And boom, you leave money on the table. Wrong, leave money on the table. Wrong, lose money. All the above, right? Whatever. And that was, and I always think of what Sean Carey said about that. And that was kind of my line of thought with doubling down. And even though I look stupid for picking against Derek Lewis, I stuck with him. Like, no, this guy, outside of, that last fight against Dawkins, he traditionally does bad against strikers. And outside of his fight against Cormier, he does excellent against wrestlers. And that proved again to be true result-wise, at least, even though he did better at wrestling and almost got the striker out of there. Derek Lewis did, but it was all Bam Bam, man. And that was definitely feel good. Jared Cannonier defeated Derek Brunson. This was another money left on the table. I would have bet this one too. I just didn't have a house that offered fight ends in round 2. And even though I feel like the consensus pick for I was seeing a lot of Cannonier round 2 picks, I still feel like stand by my Derek Brunson, or the fight ends in round 2, because Derek Brunson, lest we not forget, I didn't go back to rewatch, but I'm pretty sure he dropped and rocked Cannonier, not just got him to his ground and established his winning conditions. Of course, I didn't think he was going to be able to complete on his winning conditions and would tire himself trying to reestablish them, which is what happened, which is why I picked Cannonier particularly in the second. But you were getting plus 400 in the neighborhood if you were at a house that offered that, which I tweeted. Of course, Cannonier still won. Second round KO. Next fight, Renato Moicano. What would Renato Moicano do? Defeated Alexander Hernandez. Marky Mark from Fear. Yeah, this one went pretty much as I thought too. I even said in my breakdown here and written wise, it said Moicano second round submission. And of course, I ended up betting Moicano inside the distance, Moicano second round. And then I laid the Moicano money line, which I added to cover in case he got a decision. And nope, all three of them cash. And that sent me to the moon, Alice, to the moon. By the way, missed notes from last one. Somebody tweeted something like, I forget what the context was, but someone tweeted me like, Moicano seems like something happened to him when he was a small boy. Like, someone tweeted that at me, and I was just like, what, like what, did he spend too much time in Sean Connery's loft from Finding Forrest at Jamal? Oh, Renato. Yes. You're a bit skinny, but you'll do. Do you know the Hanji Joba? Sorry. It's like, what the fuck, right? Sorry, but yeah, I don't know where that came from, but I was just like, wow, I don't know what that vibe would be, but I don't think Mike kind of gives off that vibe, like he was touched as a kid. I mean, he does have random outbursts of anger. Wow, we're really getting into it here on the podcast, but these are the kind of tweets that I get, folks. I mean, I can't complain, you know? It's like, you know, it's like a therapist told me, maybe, or may have heard it, may have heard this secondhand. You know, you attract, of course you're attracting certain fish. Look at the fucking rod you're using, you know? And that rod is this podcast and my ridiculous sense of humor. Bobby King Green defeated Nasrat Haqparast and already has a fight booked as this podcast, which I don't like him finally getting his main event due. Bobby Green, spoiler alert, against Islam Makhachev, but we'll break that down next week. Bobby Green came through here for me and many backers of the PYM podcast here. Protect Your Neck podcast at the PYM podcast on social platforms. But yeah, I laid the chalk on Bobby Green, and he did the damn thing. It's great to see everybody finally coming around to Bobby Green, from the crowd to the pundits. Credit to the commentators. They've always been doing a good job, low-key, talking about Bobby Green, but just so many bad narratives up till recently that I felt like I always hear on them. So, you know, people are starting to represent and respect, and, you know, again, folks, not to toot my own horn, but who's been a big Bobby Green fan forever and telling you he's been criminally underrated at his lines. This guy. He's got two thumbs like Jamal. This guy. Another missed note for the next fight. Andrei Arlovsky reminded me of fucking, like, what is this? Modelo to foul. Nodder and foul shouts. Yeah. Arlovsky reminded me of, like, Tony Soprano in his interview. He just had that, like, old Italian mafia dad energy. Like, really? You wondering what I'm gonna do? Okay, you'll see. Like, that was his energy, and I was already on Arlovsky, but that just made me more confident to play him. And shouts to those of you tweeted at me you saw the Arlovsky nodders and his fly fishing for fouls. Anytime anything close to a foul comes his way, he snatches it up and gets the call, takes a breather. It was such vet shit. Like, shouts to my guy Brazchik. It was the most Arlovsky fight Arlovsky ever Arlovski'd, for sure. And he cashed. The only thing that didn't cash here was the ad, and I did a little late ad after talking to my guy Aaron, and I added around the plus 500 mark, I think, for Arlovsky by KO. And you know what? He landed Vandera clean a bunch of times, but didn't get him out of there. I know he hasn't gotten anybody out of there in like half a decade. This felt like a matchup that it could have been, and I was on the over for my parlay and on Arlovsky straight up. So, like, I wanted the KO to hedge out because I was mainly exposed heavily on that over, right? So, I just took a small sprinkle there. You know, I didn't have to take much. I think it was like 0.7 or 0.17 or something stupidly small. And that was literally the only miss of the night. Casey O'Neill defeated Roxanne Modafferi by unanimous decision. Like I called, I didn't bet because it was chalk and I wasn't sure if it was going to get there. But O'Neill was part of an adjusted parlay since Matt Schnell and Alex Perez got canceled for the billionth time. Shouts to Roxy. Kyler Phillips defeated Marcelo Rojo by submission, like I called, but I didn't play. I wanted a little bit more plus money, and I was already more exposed than I wanted to with the under in this fight. But it hits, and yeah, so that cashes the over with the over parlay for plus 147 or whatever it was with Arlovsky Vandera. Carlos Olberg, Fantasy Jewish Fight League, defeated Fabio Charant. P.S. that the trolls in like last week's comment was complaining about that, like trying to call me racist for that bit, which is funny because like at least two Jewish listeners of the show requested and said they would be disappointed if I didn't do before last week's show if I didn't do it. One of which co-hosted this show multiple times. But anyways, one of the only media members calling out a popular fighter like Rose Namajunas' anti-Semitic remarks. But yeah, for sure. But again, you know what, folks? That being said, and even though that person was just trying to troll and whatever and say like, "Oh, I thought you were woke," it's like, okay, well, now you clearly gave away what you were trying to do here. And I always love those giveaways because people that call me like, you're a lib or what? Like, I am not a fucking lib. I'm not left or right, not centrist either. I don't associate with any of that shit. I don't call myself woke. I just write to remind people that this is an anti-racist, anti-homophobic, anti-hate space because there's just too much of that bullshit. That's not really anything crazy to say, folks. I think that should be a fucking bare minimum. Call me crazy. But anyways, yeah. But that being said, you know what? I'm not beyond fucking saying offensive shit. Being racially insensitive plenty of times growing up, or maybe not even too far in the past. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I am still growing myself, folks. So I definitely don't mean to offend any of my Jewish brothers or sisters. I always try to keep things not just fun, but obviously fun, but like punching up than punching down is something I try to do. So hopefully that comes across. It's definitely not my intention to punch down. Definitely just punching up / punching into the ironic and just having fun. So yeah, Oberg comes through, man, for the tribe, baby. He defeated Sharon, stayed away from that one. Ronnie Lawrence defeated Mana Martinez. One of the missed notes: Mana defeated Casey Jones. Pain 101. But he did not defeat Ronnie Lawrence, who cashes by decision for half a unit, as well as closes the parlay with Casey O'Neill. That was an adjusted one because, again, Perez was out. Jacob Malkoun wrestled AJ Dobson to a decision. Didn't play it, but went, as I said. Played Douglas Silva Andrade as a dog, and boy, did I get a scare. Sergey Morozov looked way improved, man. He was just working Andrade over, but Andrade is a vet, man. He bounced back, and he had the big cage to work in, and it was enough to both sting Morozov and, not allow him to recover. So, yeah, I like that. That was a nice cash. Maxim Grishin defeated Thick Willie. I was rooting for Thick Willie and the betters out there, but Grishin by decision was going to be a tough stylistic matchup. That it was, and Willie came in extra thick. It's funny, everyone was calling him Extra Thick Willie, and when I was talking to my girlfriend later that night, I was like, "Oh, by the way, Thick Willie fought tonight." She's like, "Really?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He came in like 12 pounds over, and she went without a beat. She went, "Extra Thick Willie." I'm like, "Yeah." Jesus Christ, Willie fucking thickums. I hope he bounces back with a good matchup. Jeremiah was Bullfrog, Burner, defeated Mike Mathitha, Burner, but they wanted to call him Blood Diamond, but he got grounded by Jeremiah Wells. Yeah, that should have been just like fucking max play for everybody, right? Like the parlay leg, missed opportunity, yada yada, mismatch. I should have seen it. I just was avoiding it. It was way down on the card. Congrats if you got that. All right, that was the recap. 39, 37. That ended, and then we will move to Bellator. 274 is going down on Saturday as well. That is headlined by Neiman Gracie versus Logan Storley. Some other matchups on there, which I guess I can go through, but right now, we wanna kick out the jams, motherfucker. Neiman Gracie minus 190. Money's been coming in on him. It was like minus 150 or so, I swear, like when I did my breakdown. And Logan Storley up to a plus 160, but I get it. It shouldn't affect. You won't probably get as high numbers if you want to tell me here, but you still get plus numbers the way I played it. I love Logan Storley, and really am high on his maybe not potential as in like he's going to be the world-beating dominant champion, but he's going to be up there. He's going to be a tough guy to beat, and maybe he should go to 155. We'll see. I don't know. But this is a tough stylistic matchup for him in every way. He can't not fight without wrestling, and he's going to go into a dangerous submission guy. Not just dangerous submission guy, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu black belt, who like is like actually embraced, no-gi stuff / no-gi leg locks with John Danaher, which I think he's going to leg lock Storley. Logan Storley got scared from the elevations and butterfly threats, which could have leaded to leg lock entanglements when he fought Dante. What is it? Shiro, who is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu blue belt. And I believe wrestled a bit himself, but yeah, if that guy scared him, what's Neiman Gracie's going to do if he gets him down, right? And secondly, Neiman Gracie's actually gotten much better at wrestling himself, even taking guys like Ed Ruth, who Storley's really impressive. He's like one of the few states where you can like win state champ more than 4 times. He won it 6 times. So he was like a 7th grader wrestling an 11th grader to win his first one, in other words, which is crazy. And he also qualified as a Division I All-American level each time. Was in Big Ten Conference finals all 4 years. He only was a finalist 1 year, I think in 2012, and he lost to a guy named Ed Ruth. Unfortunately for him, Ed Ruth was in his division. And I know the math doesn't always work out, and Ed Ruth was tired, and his ceiling has been adjusted since, and yada yada. But who was out wrestling Ed Ruth by the end of it, and putting him in submissions and danger all the way through? That was, of course, Neiman Gracie, who's only gotten better at wrestling since then, and more importantly, has only gotten better at striking. I think his uppercuts are going to be really useful. He's been using them a lot as a counter, and that's going to be perfect for a guy who shells and dips as much as Storley does. Storley does do good when he commits to crosses of rolling his head off center, but he'll usually still dip into a shot, so he can still get hit with an uppercut. And aside from that, and some kind of a inside slip / feint, level changing feints that he does, and can parlay to an inside slip, overhand right. Aside from that, he really is vacant with the head movement, fairly hittable. And I like that Neiman Gracie, not just getting out of the gi, going to no-gi, going to Danaher, Death Squad, travels across the United States, doing boxing over at Rufka Gym, doing Muay Thai with the great Rafael Cordero, and getting, hard sparring in that round, really showing that he's a Gracie, showing that he's a fighter, and not a Gracie just there for the glamour, and he must not be afraid to get hit because he's shown a good chin and good resilience, mental and physical in the past. Most importantly, and also, again, training in a very tough kind of, almost like Dutch-style room, just hard striking kind of a room, right? Even though it's not necessarily the style of kickboxing Cordero has, but you know what I mean? It's as far as those rooms like that, like a Mike's Gym or Henry Oof's gym, Sanford or something like that. So yeah, and what was I saying? But yeah, I like that Gracie is Gracie's doing that, and he's kind of like an early Charles Oliveira mode is hopefully what he's going for. Muay Thai, you got good chin and pretty good chin. He's more durable than Charles Oliveira. He's a higher rank with more grappling experience and credentials than Charles Oliveira has or had, especially then. So yeah, man, if he goes forward with a potent Muay Thai game that he can both come forward, blitz, combo, and counter with already, elbows, knees, kicks, he already attacks all levels, and he's got a leg lock game, and he's getting better at jiu-jitsu, wrestling, I should say, offensively. I think it's a really tough fight for Logan Storley. And I feel like, and also, Storley, it's like, okay, well, maybe he outpositions him and wrestles him. We've seen him in some positions, before, Neiman Gracie. You know, people have been able to stay on top of him without getting subbed, or even as close to getting subbed as Ruth has before. Look at Jason Jackson. But I will say that I don't think that was a robbery. It was essentially comes down to how you score round. It's just a weird fight to score. It comes down to how you score round one, which the damaged fighter was Jackson, but the damage came from the fence. And even though he probably technically landed more meaningful strikes, regardless of what the fuck the stats say, who cares if they back it up or not, there was enough. It wasn't by a lot. There wasn't a lot / by a lot. So the damage plus the groundwork, a little bit of ground and pound, sub attempts, back takes, transitions. I probably would have leaned live and rewatching. I leaned Gracie that first round, but then even the next 2 rounds are weird too because I can't remember. I think you give 1 to, or you give 2 to Jackson and 3 to Gracie by my count, but that would be strange to some people because the round 2 that I would give to Jackson, Gracie more convincingly took that in many people's eyes because he gets a lot of control time and I believe ends in top position. But Gracie does even less attacking wise than he did in the first round with that top position, and Jackson lands even more harder and more consistent shots in the first half of the round that edged it toward him in my opinion. Whereas Jackson gets more of the top time in the third round, but I give it to Gracie because he did more of the damage and was trying to push the fight more. So it's kind of weird how you score that. But anyways, the one thing is that Gracie's not getting tired in any of these fights. You know, he's getting stronger in 5-round affairs. He has more experience in 5-round affairs, whereas Storley, even though he's a high-pace, well-conditioned athlete who doesn't cut a lot of weight, it comes from the wrestling and the grind set background, looks to push a high pace, all these things, and that's how he tends to beat guys. He's also consistently getting tired and hurt even in some third rounds when he gets there. He even doesn't even have like a ton of 3-round decision experience as you would expect a spamming wrestler like himself, much less 5 rounds, much less getting ready for 5 rounds like Neiman Gracie has had. And even look in those 5-round fights, he loses the unanimous decision of Fitch. Like, he has Fitch in trouble in rounds either 3 or 4 with some submissions, or McDonald, I should say, and hurts him to where McDonald's limping after the fight, to where Gracie actually did more damage than McDonald, arguably, when you look at how they're walking and how they are acting after the fight. And then Gracie also has the strongest round in the 5th, taking down McDonald and taking it to him, despite losing the fight every card up till then, arguably. So again, mentally, physically, durably, cardio, gas tank, Gracie's going to keep coming. You have to stop him. And Storley's not going to stop him. And if Storley's getting tired in the 3rd round, what's it going to be like when he's just got a guy who's literally not giving him a break? Like, no matter what position, clinch, at range, punching, kicking, bottom, leg entanglement, 50-50, top, back, dogfight, you're constantly going to have to be working. And I trust Gracie's gas tank and durability. So you could play him by sub. I just took him inside the distance because it was still plus money at plus 115. I think sub is plus 215. So it's I think, wow, it's plus 150 at some places, Gracie inside the distance. So if you can get that, I only got plus 115. I got a lower number. I ain't going to front. I put 0.75 3/4 unit on that. And then what I also did was, I don't know what the odds are going to be for round 3, 4, and 5 in my other houses. But in my Bet Online house, I took round 3, 4, and 5 sprinkles, but round 3, 4, 5 sub sprinkles. So he has to win by submission in those rounds. But you get like stupid increased odds. So I just put 0.17 units on all those. Round 3 sub is plus 1100. Round 4 sub is plus 14. Round 5 sub is plus 18. I feel like he actually could even get it sooner because if Storley fights the way he fights, he's going to put himself in some danger. But A, Storley looks to have really good submission defense for what it's worth when he's fresh. And B, you got to imagine there's got to be some type of strategic adjustment, and maybe they try to strike for the first round and a half or 2, right? So that's kind of what I'm accounting for with that. But I feel like round 3 is the round gun in my head, and I sprinkle 3, 4, and 5 because if it gets that far, Storley's going to be in bad shape, and Gracie, whether he's up on the scorecards or down, he's always looking for that finish. So that's what I played there for Bellator. I'm not going to talk about the rest because I didn't play anything there or look into anything, right? So fair enough. All right. That time is 5:40 Bellator and 50 Bellator and all right, UFC Fight Night at 51. UFC Fight Night 201, UFC Vegas 48, UFC Walker versus Hill. I'm going to break that down from top to bottom. I'm going to try to go as fast as I can. This one, the in-depth breakdown, of course, at MMAJunkie.com. We're on Fight Day. You can also check out my news section, which, again, has been fairly accurate this year with the way the picks have been going. Main card, picks and prognostications. Again, it's going to be kind of a crazy card. It's not a card I want to attach a lot of money on this card, by the way. But I'll tell you where I put my money regardless. More than I thought, so for whatever that's worth. But still, yeah, we'll see. I didn't bet anything on this main event, which was supposed to be Desanya's Fiziev. But we got Jamal bolt the door if you're coming in. Minus 240 and Johnny Walker. Walker Johnny plus 195. Yeah, man. Jamal, man. He just like Jamal in Finding Forrester. He used to play some ball, but he's got more skills. He's not just an athlete, man. Underestimate this kid at your own peril. He does have some smarts outside of, going back into Paul Craig's guard. I kind of get that. The guy has really good underhook awareness in the clinch, like actually really good. So it kind of made sense that he had it hardwired to go for some cross control when he had the half guard to immediately want to establish a cross underhook. Of course, that gave Paul Craig an overhook, which, again, in Hill's defense, there's not many people at heavyweight or light heavyweight who can swing hips like a pendulum out from an overhook. That's why like tall, big guys that can do that are real dangerous. Shouts to my catch wrestling coach, Neil Melanson. He could wreak havoc, especially in his day from, being a big guy, a big, long guy who can move like that. Because not a lot can, right? And, hey, all prospect losses tend to happen by submission. He comes back, granted, Crute, fights, he always fights reckless, but seemed a little bit extra reckless and stupid even for him. Still, Jamal Hill looks great. Can't take anything away from him there. I just like what I'm hearing from him. I went back and watched some of his other regional footage. He actually, chains pretty decently to and from a single leg and can competently finish from there. I went back and watched his 5-rounder with Daquan Townsend. His gas tank's not bad, all considering. It's only his 4th fight. His chin isn't impervious because he gets rocked in that fight too with some hooking counters. So that's going to be something to watch for. That being said, I feel like his hooking counters, particularly from southpaw, will be more potent on Johnny Walker, who is 2-2 against UFC southpaws. I believe he got clubbed and subbed against Wagner and Prado outside of the UFC. And then Klitzen Abreu, of course, knocks him out with a checking hook. He gets rocked with hooks and checking hooks a lot throughout his career, whether he wins or loses Walker. And the 2 southpaws that he beat in the UFC, of course, was Misha Serkinov going through a really tough stretch, and he catches him with a flying knee right off the bat. Really hard to know what to make of that. And then, of course, who was his other freaking southpaw win? Sorry, bear with me here. Johnny Walker. Sorry, pulling him up. If you're shouting, apologize. I'll get this. I'll get it. Khalil Roundtree, of course. That's right, Khalil. Got him in the clinch. But yeah, I'm still going to stick with that southpaw read, though. I think that, southpaws are still going to have trouble, especially one who does well pressuring guys at the cage, whereas Johnny Walker, even pre-John Kavanagh, off the back foot, be safe and keep it flowy and fainty. Even still, before that, Johnny Walker had a bad habit of getting pushed back to the fence and costing him an Anderson fight, costing him against Krylov, and again, costing him on the regional scene, too. That's where his finishes end up taking place at. And he's in the small cage here, and he's against a guy who's been in the small cage a bunch, and will fairly consistently pressure. And I think he's going to tutor the body and right hook him upstairs to the chin. Or check right hook him when Johnny Walker comes in. I got Jamal by first round knockout. Bolt the door if you're coming in. That's right, Jamal. Pedo Forrester. Just putting the money on him. I'm not, though. I'm not. We've seen Jamal throw out the game before. He's not beyond doing that. I'm quoting Finding Forrester, another obscure damn movie from 2000. Gus Van Sant. Jesus, Dan. Wasn't even that good. Yeah. All right. So we'll go to the next fight. Co-main event. I don't know why people we can give that distinction. Like, UFC's been caring about their co-main events on fight nights, at least since 2019. No offense, because I'm actually on Kyle Dukakis minus 290 versus Jamie. Talking about a night wolf. Oh. Pickett plus 230 for the night wolf. I want to root for Jamie Pickett. Seems like a really nice dude, hardworking dude. Good for him getting not just one, but now 2 UFC wins. But man, it was life or death in those wins. Man, did he have to hustle out takedowns. And this is going to be a tough matchup for him. He's technically 0-2 against UFC level southpaws. I know he beat that on his third try at Contender Series. He beat a very undersized southpaw, and he looked good striking against him, and he's even had moments against others, like Tafon and Chukwi, despite losing a clear decision. It's his confidence to where even he rocks the guys. It's almost like he can't believe it. He did, obviously, in that third Contender Series swing at bat, but again, no offense to that gentleman, was not very, was not very good. Not technically a UFC level fighter. Didn't make it then, so he doesn't count. That's why he's officially 0-2 against UFC southpaws Jamie Pickett. But even against a raw striker, not even a striker, he's more of a submission guy, Joseph Holmes, but a tall guy, striking with a tall guy, I should say. Despite it being a debutante and having an experience edge, sure, he won, but he was uncomfortable and even noted how uncomfortable he was with that. Despite, quote-unquote, getting more comfortable with the cameras. Well, now he's going to have another tall guy with better striking and a southpaw in Chris Dukakis, purple belt under the Bang Muay Thai system, working the boxing down there in Philly. And I think he's going to make him really uncomfortable at range, which will probably make Pickett go to his plan B that has recently become his plan A, which is shooting takedowns, whether it's against the fence or in the open. He shoots. He shoots to counter blitzes. He shoots to get takedowns. He shoots out of panic. He just shoots. But are you really going to shoot against a tall guy who specializes in Bravo chokes and front chokes like Chris Dawkins? I know Jamie Pickett is a brown belt in jiu-jitsu, but he's not beyond being subbed, and he's facing a black belt in Chris Dawkins, who's more experienced and can capitalize from those positions. And then add in the fact that it's the small cage. I feel like Dawkins is coming into his own. For better or worse, Dawkins kind of pushes into the fire, right? We saw that in some losses, in fact. But in this case, I think it's going to help him. So I took Dawkins as one leg of a 2-leg parlay. And me, I like to beef up my parlay legs with potential added bonuses. So I took Dawkins inside the distance at plus 200 for a half unit. I know it's kind of harder to tell which path he could do a decision here, and the odds reflect that it is harder to tell. But for plus 200 and how I feel and how I see it happening, that's where I don't force myself to take a bonus. You guys know that. So I'm not forcing myself, but I do like that number, and I took it for as high as a half unit, so plus 200. If that hits, it makes back this parlay. Or it makes back the exposure I have in one of my favorite fighters who's coming down later. But not this next fight. Although one of my low-key favorites, Parker Porter, Cardio Machine, minus 265 versus Alan Badeau, plus 215. I'm taking Porter here. Feels like it could be a trap fight because Porter gets rocked in a lot of his fights, especially early, whereas that's Badeau's only shot. But Badeau's not even like a kickboxer like Gane was. Like, he said he just started for fun, like not even 10 years ago, and it looks like it. He just jumped into a bunch of random fights in Asia. It was like beating some randos over there who were like undersized. Like, he fought like a 5'9" heavyweight who fought like another heavyweight or a light heavyweight, like Japanese guy, like 5'9" light heavyweight. Like, these are the guys he was fighting over there. So I don't I don't know what the competition was like over there, And then, he's over in TKO, and he comes in off of a third-round TKO, but if you go back watch that fight in the organization, he gets washed in that fight. He gets beat down by a guy whose weakness seems to be his ground game, and, was asking for his purple belt, which meant he was only a blue belt. And the guy looked like a black belt against Badeau. Badeau, of course, gets washed by Tom Aspinall, but then, doesn't even look good against Nascimento, who gets that fight overturned, granted, but, we thought that Nascimento was going to get the sub, and Nascimento, who doesn't seem like that good mental fortitude, was able to come back after being rocked, but not just come back, but when he decided to put on the strikes on him, Badeau just folded, man. So I like Parker Porter here. I don't want to pay that price, and I don't want to be exposed to that kind of chalk from a heavyweight in a parlay like that. This level, so I stayed away, to be honest, but I feel like it's Porter here is the right pick. Next fight, Nicholas Mata, minus 170, Jim Miller plus 150. You guys guessed it, I'm on Jimmy Miller, Jimmy fucking Miller, son. Although you could accuse me of betting with my heart, and although I don't have to really defend myself, I can just say value bet. Jim Miller was open at minus 185. Now he is, plus 155. That's value all day. Aside from that, I also think he might be the more durable party of the two, even though Nicholas Mota is almost 10 years younger, and has, even though he's 10 years younger, he's been knocked out the same amount of times as Miller, despite Miller having over 3 times as many fights. Mota's southpaws before, but his chin doesn't seem great, checking shots can get him. His left hook's his best shot, and that's definitely going to be a danger to Miller, who got rocked by a left hook in his last time out. Left hook is the southpaw killer, folks. Left hook definitely going to be live, but he likes to vary his left hook to the body and combo it and lever it off the same side, and I feel like he's going to opens himself up to the check hook that Miller's been throwing for years. And then if he throws his right hand, Mata, I think if he overthrows that, he's going to open himself up to inside slips / counter crosses that Miller has quietly developed this last half of the decade. It's been quietly his best shots. Got him his knockout last time out. Set up his club and sub against Guida. Won him the rematch against Lozon. It goes back, that shot. It's really been a strong one, quietly. Old dogs do learn new tricks to an extent, And I feel like those shots are going to be live. Miller could even get the knockout here with the way Mota's chin is. But Mota, not just giving up guillotine and RNC, granted it was to Glyco Franca, a giant lightweight who's now a welterweight where he should be, and he's giant for that weight class, even whereas Mota is an undersized lightweight like Miller. He's lost to the 2 submissions Miller gets all the time for club and subs, which is RNC and guillotine. He almost gave away to an armbar in a recent fight as well, in the exact same fashion Roosevelt Roberts gave to Jim Miller, because he will sacrifice technique for urgency in order to get up Mota will, which means he'll give that back. He'll have some sloppy get-ups that a guy like Jim Miller can snatch some backs, necks, and or arms, and maybe even legs to get on top. Although that'd be dangerous because Mota, again, this guy is a natural puncher, but he doesn't have the chin for it. I don't think he has a submission defense either. And furthermore, even in the fights where he was able to go to decision, which is kind of a worry here, especially if you take a potential under as the hedge for a Mota win, which, by the way, if you can get it for minus 140 or under, I don't blame you. That's playable chalk in my book. Under 2.5, but at the Bet Online, they actually have fight doesn't go the distance for the same price as the under, minus 140. So you're essentially getting 2.5 minutes for free. I feel like that's a good hedge. And yes, Mota, as he's gotten more mature and his competition's gotten harder, which is often the case for a lot of these fighters, even with low decision rates, will have their decisions around these kind of fights. That being said, you look at his last 2 fights, which were decision, and there's one point where he rocks. I notice this is a pattern throughout his fights, is if he doesn't get guys out of there, his record shows that he's do or die, and this is why, because there are flashes, even in fights that he wins, even fights that he wins by decisions. Both of his recent ones. Again, go watch him. He hurts both fighters multiple times and lets him back into the fight multiple times. The Juan guy, in his second to last fight, he hurts him late into the round after he's been dominating him. And the guy who has like zero wrestling, he's just looks way outmatched. After getting a rock, the guy somehow gets like a standing back take, a la like Sean Strickland. And shout out to Verbal Tap. I still owe them on a bet, by the way. I have not forgot about that. I still owe Kevin Phillips his bet. But their recent guest was the guy who subbed Sean Strickland, like standing, and it was like similar to that. And then in his Contender Series fight, he bashes this guy's head in, who Devontae Smith knocked out, so the guy can be knocked out. He, like many of Mota's fighters, haven't fought since, so they weren't particularly proven before, and we really still haven't gotten to get a beat on him since, because a lot of these guys haven't fought since the pandemic, right? It's kind of level of competition, too, that Mota's fighting for, what that's worth. But that guy gets his face bashed in Contender Series, and even though the refs telling him to fight back, like, it was unfair. The guy was there, even though it looked bad. He actually was like hitting and having his best round in round 3 after being almost knocked out a bunch of times and dominated. Like Mota, like that's the extent that he lets guys back into fights. So for that reason, I played Miller money line at 0.66 units. Six. The number of the beast, hell and fire. Sorry. And I know the popular play, might as well play him inside the distance. I did, but I like to give a dog's play for odds checker, so Miller was my dog play. But I do write in there that if you want to add value, you go inside the distance, which I did as well, at 0.35 units for plus 260 at plus 265. So that almost gets me another extra $100 if you're doing units like I do, at least. And that's like pretty much $100 exposed and potentially $200 back on Miller if he wins. If he wins, it's probably going to be inside the distance. So part of me was thinking of a hedge, but I'll say that maybe, again, I'm going to need like minus 140 range or lower on under 2.5 or fight doesn't go. And I think this is going to be my strategy, folks. You're still waiting for me to drop my first leg of that parlay. It's probably the more dangerous leg according to the numbers and my feelings as well. So if that leg drops, which happens before the Miller fight, not right before, but enough time before, and the odds are where I like it, then I think I may double down and try to make back the 1 unit I didn't have for my parlay, and I'll lay 1.4 or whatever the chalk is to get an even unit back for the under to either have an added bonus for a Miller win or, to either, again, it's either going to cover my Miller play as a hedge, or if Miller does win, it's hopefully going to cover and or add to my parlay, either hedge, what I expose for my parlay, right? Because I always do 1 unit on my parlay for the most part. But yeah, I got Miller here. Closing on the main card, Joaquin Buckley minus 170, Abdul Razak Al Hassan plus 150. Yeah, money coming on Buckley. I don't know why. I figured people would be fading him with the Dust tactical guy in his corner. I know he did some training in Extreme Couture, but it's hard to tell with Buckley. He's so nomadic. And I feel like he tried to be, maybe because he was gun shy or actively trying somewhere between both his last fight. But generally, the stuff that catches him kind of seems like it's going to be there. He has a lot of the same tells, a lot of the same offenses. And at the end of the day, I don't think he's as durable because he gets rocked, win or lose a lot of the times as Abdul Razak Al Hassan. I know you never want to bet, much less, for me and my sensibilities, pick 1 round or bust fighters. But even when he's been busted, it's not like he, outside of the one shot Chaos Williams, he's not getting put out. The guy shows a hell of a chin. He's hard to get out of there. And now this is his second camp at Colorado. We didn't get to see his cardio because he iced Di Chirico right away. Which, by the way, Di Chirico, who's not a dedicated southpaw, he'll always fight the open stance. But for comparison purposes, it was the only southpaw of note in Al Hassan's sample. And he essentially ices Di Chirico immediately. But the fact that he said he was reading the slip to the outside but was able to adjust to the inside, well, that's exactly what Buckley does. And Razak Al Hassan showed that he can already read these things. So between that and the durability and the potential improved cardio from the Denver training camp at high elevation to not having to cut the weight to 170 anymore, I actually picked Razak Al Hassan here. I'm not going to play it because it's a volatile as fuck fight, but ain't no way I'm going to play the chalk here, even if you pick Buckley. I'd be careful on that, folks. My pick is Al Hassan. Next fight, David Onama, minus 145, Gabriel Benitez. I'm excited for this one. You guys know I'm a big fan of Benitez, one of my favorite tough Latam fighters. But even though Billy Quarantillo has put some fighters out in his day, you know I'm a big fan of Billy Quarantillo, Buffalo, Florida. Maybe Benitez is getting older, and it's starting to wear his miles from the striking wars he's been on. Whereas David Onama seems like he's built to go to war, man. Athletic, young, well-rounded, well-trained, with a good coach in his corner. Now in a full camp. I really liked him. I know you'd be careful grading someone in a loss, but I really liked him in a losing effort. I'm going to take him here, but this is a wait-and-see fight regardless. Of course, I'll be happy for Benitez, especially Benitez at plus money for Benitez backers out there. But this is not a fight I really want action on either way. I want to wait and see. I want the best for both guys. I want a good fight. So no action for me there. However, second leg of the parlay will be next as far as action for me. Jessica Rose Clark, minus 165. Even lower now. Money coming in on Stephanie Edger, plus 145. I know a lot of these female fights can scare off a lot of bettors. They can have certain swings in it from a heavyweight perspective, as in a sense of results, not because of finishes, but because of swings in result, from favorite to underdog upsets. Rose Clark fought a bit close, you could say, in her last fight, and has been in closely contested affairs. But honestly, I rewatched the tape on Stephanie Edger, and I was not impressed. Even her judo looks very counterable and very basic, what you'd expect from nothing new you haven't seen from judo practitioners in the last decade or so, and nothing to write home about in that department to stand up to the best ones, regardless of gender. Cormier keeps saying she looks better in her second fight on the feet, but she just looks lost, man. She has a feint jab, maybe a two. Maybe she can read your first shot, can try to anticipate a rear-handed parry and work off a counter from there. But past that initial layer, she gets lost, tense. Her arms go out like a mummy, and her eyes kind of close, and her head turns. Like, she looks super uncomfortable. Jocelyn Edwards, granted it was close, and Rose Clark, like Bisping was saying on commentary, could have done more to put a gap between her via the striking. But Edwards, much better than given credit for. Much more athletic and strong than Egger, much more dangerous than Egger, much more natural fighting sensibilities than Egger, much more athletic, more dangerous fight than Egger. He's even on the ground. Egger doesn't look great. She's got like one armbar win in her first win. Like, she's got a doctor stoppage over Mara Romero Borella, who you can't really count her. She's got the weirdest sample size in the book. Her second TKO stoppage comes over to like a 40-year-old in a losing streak, I think, who hasn't fought since. Experiences she may be, never really beat anybody good. And then, of course, another weird stoppage in her last fight, which I don't blame Mark Smith as hard as others because of the body language Shayna Young put off. But that was bad. I mean, Shayna Young's like a flyweight. She's small, especially compared to Edger. And even though she said she did some wrestling in high school or whatever, and like, Edger's not a great wrestler. She's a lifelong karateka who does striking. And she was undersized, so like, of course she was going to get ragdolled when she got to the ground. Whereas Jessie Jess has really revamped her wrestling despite knee injury, despite popularity. You think she could go one route? No, man, she's in it to win it, man. Immersing herself, CSA for striking, Daniel Cormier, aka wrestling, Team Alpha Male submission grappling, just doing the damn thing. And if she does have that grappling and wrestling in her back pocket, she should be the clearly better striker and should roll to a win here. She opened at minus 200, 220, which I agree, but I also get people fading that. But she came down to minus 175, and that was more than enough for me to, you know what? Let's just keep it simple. Let's go off of the people that we trust, that have made us money before. We got a better read than all these debutantes and wild matchups. I feel like this one should be pretty clear. So I took Jessica Rose Clark minus 175, paired her up with Dawkins at minus 260 for plus 117 parlay. And to beef up the parlay legs with potential bonuses, I took Rose Clark by decision. I don't see either of them finishing each other, so I think the fight goes there regardless. And I think Clark wins, and if she wins by decision. So you're gonna give me plus 125. Well, I'm back up to my normal half units. We're back in Vegas. Better. Doesn't mean we won't lose to the judges. We won't get jacked by the judge or anything like that. Not that I'm a fan of robbery, but you know what I mean. I'm just saying there's a better crop of judges that you should respect. We all should probably try to respect more, and also while still holding them accountable. You just appreciate those judges more after coming from a place like Houston. So we'll see. Half a unit, Clark by decision. See if I get burned by that. But yeah, and if that does burn, then I'll be looking at that Mata Miller under to make back. This is another flyer of the night here. It's not on the sheet, but you'll get it here. Chas Gillian minus 200, Mark Striegel plus 170. I know I've been fading retiring fighters, but sometimes older and more experienced fighters getting the fight they want. Well, that's also been an angle I'm on, and I think that's going to be the case here with Skelly. Striegel been training with the MMA Lab, so he's got good training partners for this. But I don't know how long he was there. It only shows him being there for a week. The rest of the time he was in the Philippines. The dude seems like kind of a glass cannon. Hasn't fought great competition. He's got better wrestling, not better wrestling credentials than Chad. Skelly's an all-American wrestler. Striegel has wrestling credentials, but I don't know how good of a wrestler he is when you really look at the footage and who he's having to wrestle, much less a big 145er with a funk stylings and submission stylings like Skelly. Skelly also deceptively tough chin and heavy hands. So like maybe he could even knock this guy out. So one of my last chances to bet Skelly, and I know he's retiring, but he's not like, I've had, and he's had health issues, but it's not because of his health issues. It's not because of this. He's not planning retirement parties. He's still leaving the door open. He's just trying to move on to another career to make money because the guy's had some bad luck. So if anything, this is kind of the retiring scenario that I'm most comfortable with if I had to be comfortable with one gun to the head. And last chance to play a guy like Skelly who has made me a ton of money. Shouts to that Kevin Souza win, especially. I took Skelly inside the distance, same odds as the decision prop for Clark, plus 125, same risk, half a unit I'm laying. Yeah. All right. I haven't been able to round robin, but I'll tell you which of the 3 of the 4 props I'm going to parlay, because I only can parlay, so I'm only taking 3, not 4. But if you're in a house to do round robin, I would not hate any of you guys to round robin these 4 and let me know how it does at a price you're comfortable with, of course. Not telling you where to put your money, just saying I just envy round robiners. Because your boy here would have been hitting them these last couple of weeks, Anyways. Jonathan Pierce minus 380, Christian Rodriguez. Didn't go look into this one. JSP should win, but yeah, again, not enough sample size. Opposite the JSP side, I'll take Pierce. Diana Belbita minus 120, money coming in on Gloria De Paula plus 100. Still going to stick with Belbita to win this, but not a fight I want anything to do with. Chen Anheliger, well-rounded guy, minus 250, but I don't know if he's that well-rounded. Jesse Strader, don't know a lot about him, didn't look into it. Don't know if I want to lay the chalk on a Contender Series guy straight out of the chute, but I'll take Anheliger. And lastly but not leastly, Mario Bautista, minus 350, will get you into the plus 175 range if you add him to the 2-leg parlay. But I'm already more exposed in those fights than I like, so I didn't. But more than worthy parlay leg against a guy who I think is going to try to grapple with him, Jay Perrin. But Bautista, I think he learned those lessons with Sanhagen. And Bautista also recently got his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu brown belt to go with what should be a solid striking advantage on the feet and down the stretch. So I'll take Bautista there. All right, how did we do on time? 1 minute 19. All right. Going to recap picks and plays here. Bellator real quick, taking Gracie over Storley. Played him inside the distance, plus 115. Gracie, that is, for 3/4 units. Also sprinkled on rounds 3, 4, and 5. Not yet in a regular house, but rounds 3, 4, and 5 by sub, 0.17 units apiece there. For UFC Vegas 48, taking Jamal over Walker. Taking Dukakis over Pickett. Taking Parker Porter over Badeau. Taking Milasan over Mota. Taking Al Hassan over Buckley. Taking Onama over Benitez. Taking Clark over Edger. Taking Skelly over Striegel. Taking Pierce over Rodriguez. Taking Belbita over De Paula. Taking Anheliger over Strader. Taking Bautista over Perrin. Parlay Dawkins and Clark at plus 117 for a unit. Played Miller at plus 155 for 0.66 units. Also played Miller inside the distance plus 265 for 0.35 units. Clark by decision plus 125 for 0.5 units. Dukakis inside the distance plus 200 for 0.5 units. I'm going to parlay those three specifically for what it's worth, though. You can round robin the fourth, which is Chaz Skelly inside the distance plus 125 for half a unit. Avoid what you like, play with what you like. Good luck on your picks and plays, folks. Thanks for listening to another late episode. I apologize. I promise to steer the ship correctly. It was major setbacks at the beginning of the year, but we're still making money. We're still trying to have fun, and hopefully you guys are able to stay healthy. Good luck on your picks and plays, and always protect your neck.